Welcome to Basement TV. We have another amazing guest with us today.
Not only is he a Juno Award winner, best known for being the frontman of the band Moist, he also has a massively successful solo career.
You might think that he's only a singer. You're wrong. He is also the co-founder of an AI technologies company called Reimagine AI. You won't want to miss this. David.
Albert.
Thank you so much for doing our little podcast.
Happy to, man. Happy to.
I really, really appreciate it. David, you and I go way back. 1996, I got a call from Mark McAway saying that they needed space to rehearse. They had now lost their rehearsal space and needed a place to rehearse. So I was super thrilled to have the band pull up with all of their gear, playing louder than Voivod. I'm glad that I really, really, really worked on my soundproofing because that band was incredibly loud, but I was extremely happy to actually have you in my studios. And that was the first encounter. And what was really funny is that building went bankrupt. And then I found a spot on Saint Laurent, 4200 Saint Laurent. And Kevin Young, keyboardist for Moist, mentions to me, by the way, that's where we store all of our gear.
I remember that, yeah.
It was just, we were just meant to stay together for all these years. Now, throughout your career before moving to Montreal, you had a successful career outside of Montreal. What do you find the difference was from being from Vancouver, Toronto to Montreal? What were the huge differences and why the move to Montreal?
Yeah, I mean, we did the first album and then we were essentially on the road for, I think it was 2 years, and we'd given up our apartments. And then we did the second, I think it was the second record, we sort of had a choice of what we wanted to do, and we decided to come to Montreal. My memory for this stuff's not so good, so it's all a bit of a blur.
Well, we're about to take you down memory lane.
But we just love the city, so we wanted to go. You know, we weren't tied down by apartments or things like that because we'd basically been living on the road for a couple of years. So it was easy to make the move. It was easy to make the choice.
I want to take us back a little bit, though, because I was looking a little bit into your history. I believe you went to university. Was it in political science?
I did, yeah.
So how did Moist start? How did you jump into music?
Yeah, well, I'd been doing music since I was little, I was probably, I've been writing songs since I was, 12. Mm-hmm. I first started, I didn't actually have a guitar. I played violin and piano, and I hated them both. So I kept quitting. My mom kept forcing me, Asian mother. Mm-hmm. And my sister actually got a classical acoustic guitar, and she never played it. So I started playing that. I started writing songs. And then I met Kevin Young, I think it was the last year of high school. And we ended up moving out to Vancouver together. And at the same time, Jeff and Mark were going to Queens, and they had started a band, and they ended up moving out as well. And it was in Toronto, Vancouver, that we all met and hooked up and started Moist out there.
I was really interested because it kind of took me back through my own history. One of my bands, Dollhouse Riot, when we got together, very, very shortly after getting together, we started doing shows for bigger named acts. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Moist had their first show like 2 months after getting together.
We were very quick. We wrote a whole bunch of songs, and then we just jumped on stage. And I'd never played live before.
Really?
I played a couple of like cafes with Kevin, but I never played live before. And so that was we just threw ourselves into it. We were really from the very beginning, just super determined.
Was your intention like we're going to do this, we're going to be successful, or was it just mostly fun at the beginning?
I mean, it was fun for sure, but I don't think that we had you know, I don't think you think about, you know, you're not trying, your brain isn't thinking world domination, but at the same time, we were just very, you know, focused on songs, touring, all of the stuff that you need to be in a band, at least back then, we were very focused on, and we were super focused on being on the road. We wanted to be on the road. So after, it was a very short time till we had our first shitty old van and we were out and gone. And from that time, we just continued to tour constantly.
And the signing, when were you first with EMI?
We were actually signed to, we made our first independent tape that turned out to be a lot of the songs from Silver were from that original demo recording, became the actual songs without re-recording. Some of them were mixed a bit, but I don't think that much. We added a couple more songs, but we made that first independent tape, and then we were signed by EMI Publishing, by Barb Seaton and Mike McCarty. And we had been passed on by most labels at that point. And then we made that, we sort of did this thing where we, you know, Much Music was a big thing back then, and we were like, okay, we have the song, we think, now we need to make a video. And we were thinking, you know, we made it for $2,000, and we figured that if it got a couple of plays on Much Music, it would be worth the $2,000 because it would help our live show. Sure. And the video just, you know, we shot the video in a day, and it was basically almost one take. We did a lot of takes, but we found one that just worked. It was supposed to have all sorts of edits all over the place, but it ended up being just one, almost a single take.
Because it was almost like a one camera.
It was
like
a one
sequence.
camera follow.
Was this for
Yeah, it was
push?
it was a
For push, yeah.
Yeah,
For
for
push,
push.
okay.
It was a one camera follow,
Exactly.
which is
And-
not easy.
No, well, it was almost a fluke, right? It just so happened that take was, there was something about that take.
Wow.
I think it was spliced between two takes actually. And then the video just took off, and then we got signed after the band was already on the rise. So we had already established ourselves and our independence really before we got signed by EMI Records.
Do you think that's that organic way that doesn't seem to be the focus these days? These days it's more followers, likes. Do you still feel that there's a place for that type of organic growth in the industry today, to take a band out on the road and just try to like push, no pun intended?
I have to be honest, I don't know. I mean, I just don't really have an idea. The music business is a different business now than it was, for sure. And I'm not particularly in the music business anymore. I still make music. I still play festivals. But the business of, you know, I have a whole other thing that I'm doing. But the business of making music, it's a different industry now. You know, media has changed completely.
Yep.
And will continue to change. With AI is going to completely revolutionize all media, as it already is. And the trajectory is just, you know, the escalation is just continuing up and to the right. So the business that we had then is different than the business now, and the business in 5 years is going to be completely different than it is now.
Yeah, no, we talk about AI a lot and how that's going to potentially impact the music industry, as we're already seeing that it's kind of having impacts on the film industry and other industries as well. And you would know better than all both of us.
I mean, we can get into that later, but we're going to see.
It's a rabbit hole.
We're going to see a massive shift in the way media is created.
Now, there have been different sort of trajectories of your art form as a musician, playing with Moist, having success with the band, touring. First of all, was there an initial reason why Montreal seemed to be like a logical place for you to go? Usually there's always a woman involved.
There actually wasn't a woman involved. Actually wasn't a woman involved. We just really love the town. It's, you know, the quest of being like a creative person or a creative band and entity is always to be changing up the setting, you know, changing up how you make things. And when you're in a band that is a very, you know, where everyone has a say in what we're doing, you have to change up other things because you're not going to change up your musicians. So you're trying to change out the parameters of what you're doing. Creativity is constantly trying to change up, the improv that you're working within, so you get a different result. That's the way I think of it anyway.
Right.
So moving somewhere different is totally normal to try and shift the environment that you're working in, shift the people that are around, shift the focus, just change where your mindset is.
For the most part of your career, you've always surrounded yourself with the bandmates that have been moist, and you've always shared everything when it's moist. It's a moist project. Everything is equally divided, writing, publishing. But there was this common respect that I constantly saw when you guys walked into a room, and I've seen not hundreds, thousands of bands walk through that room. And I can honestly say that you are definitely one of the two bands that I know that have constantly, I felt this respect amongst everyone in the band. There was banter, there was jokes, there were things like that, but there was this constant respect for each person's role in the band. How is that even? It's so hard to even find a significant other in your life, and to find 4 other people that are like, wow, it's quite remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, we have been, you don't know when you're in it. When you're in the what is really like a whirlwind at the beginning and things are just going crazy, you don't realize how lucky everything is. But as you get older, especially now, as you go through life and you get to step on that stage, you get to take moments and you get to reflect on the fact that, this is a fun job. It's a fun thing to do. And you're with we've always tried to remember that we're lucky to be doing this with our friends.
Yeah.
Even if you don't always totally get along or there's something going on, whatever,
right.
There's always shit, right?
Right.
But you're with your friends and you're doing things that you love to do and you're lucky to do it. Mm-hmm. It's 1 in a million that get to do this gig and you get to do this thing with your friends. It's ridiculous. So we try and remember that idea.
And the writing process, when it is, because your solo career was your solo career, and we'll get onto that in a second. But when you are writing with the band, how did that flow? Because it's obvious, it's like when it's your project, if you don't like something, you're like, nope. Like there's no debating whether it's going to go through or not. It's a feeling that you get and you're like, no. And how much compromise was there amongst the band to do different things and maybe wanted to do a different direction?
There's a lot of push and pull for sure. I mean, you can't help but have that. There's this idea that, you want to get through, and everyone tries to figure out their way of negotiating, pushing, looping in, allies. It's like it's like a Big Brother house where you're trying to get your ideas through. But at the same time, I think that, we realize that we all have a part in this specific entity. There's there's this weird balance, and we sort of have an understanding too, right? After a while, you get an understanding of what's going on and what is good and what is bad.
Sure.
Or what together you believe is good and bad.
Right.
I consider like half the role of being a successful band is being able to identify what's good and what sucks really fast for you. Right?
Sure.
Becomes
And
like
everybody
a
being on the same page.
second nature almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's part of the role of a creative is, your job is to filter a ton of shit and be able to identify the amazing things and hold on to those to make them part of the work.